This is Tell Me Why, where we bring together elementary school children who have a passion for science with a scientist who can answer their questions for us. This week, is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it Von and Dane Mills from Marietta, Georgia? Ardent Superman fans with some questions for physics professor Jim Kakalios, the author of The Science of Superheroes. Dane, I hear that you guys had Superman pancakes this morning. Is that true?
Yes.
You guys crazy about Superman?
Yes.
What are your favourite Superman powers?
Mine is super strength, and mine is he can fly.
Pretty good. Let's start there, Professor. Super strength. How is that possible?
Well, that's a great question. And by the way, thank you for having me. And hi, Juan and Dane. In the comic books, when Superman first appeared, he had a very scientific explanation for his super strength. It's the same source of super strength that Dane and Vaughn have right now. Namely, if Vaughn and Dane went to the moon, they would have super strength because as strong as they are on Earth, the gravitational pull of the moon being 1/6 as large, they would be able to leap moon buildings in a single bound and lift moon cars overhead, which would astonish the moon people. Perhaps I've said too much. But the fact is that when Superman first appeared, the source of his strength was explained by the fact that his planet Krypton had a larger gravity than Earth. So his muscles and skeleton structure were adapted to a much stronger gravity, so in our weaker Earth gravity, he could do amazing feats. Now, they say the source of his strength is the fact that we have a yellow sun, whereas Krypton has a red sun. Our sun is called Sol. Krypton's sun is called Rao. Yes, I do know that. And so somehow the shift of peak wavelength of 80 nanometers from yellow to red is enough to enable someone to bend steel in their bare hands.
That sounds like the kind of thing that a writer who is much more creative than scientific just kind of pulls out of their
right.
But
Superman was first created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, teenagers out of Cleveland, Ohio, who were fans of science fiction pulp magazines. And so they tried to make it as quote-unquote scientific as they could originally. But as you're right, as the character evolved over the years, he started to face more and more powerful villains. He developed greater and greater strength and more powers until finally they just changed the source of his superpowers entirely.
And what about flying? Is it true that he didn't start out flying? The original Superman couldn't fly?
That's right. He could leap. He could leap a tall building in a single bound.
Did you know that, Dane? Did you know that when Superman started out, he couldn't fly? Dane and Vaughn?
What?
So when Superman began, in the original version of Superman, he couldn't fly. Did you know that?
I think so. I didn't actually know.
Yeah, so apparently he couldn't. Yeah. Moderate disappointment there from Vaughn and Dane. Jim, now that he can fly, how is that theoretically possible?
Well, there's actually an interesting paper that's out on the web written by a scientist, Ben Tippett, who proposes a unified theory of Superman's powers, where basically he ascribes all of Superman's abilities to the ability to control inertia, to control mass.
I actually have this paper right here. It's a wonderful, wonderful paper. Look, there it is, a unified theory of Superman's powers.
I know, it's very clever. I love it because it goes to the same philosophy I have in the physics of superheroes. What is the one-time miracle exemption from the laws of nature that we have to grant in order to account for the superpowers? And Superman seemed to be outside that realm initially because he had so many different powers that you'd have to grant many, many exemptions, many suspensions of disbelief. But Ben Tippett has managed to narrow it down to in a very creative and clever way, find that if you can control mass, your own mass or other objects' mass, then you would be able to do many of the things Superman could do. For example, right now we're all stationary relative to the ground. But if we were to suddenly change our frame of reference and become stationary relative to the fixed stars up in the sky, then relative to the ground's moving at several thousand miles per hour beneath us. And so, analogously, we would be flying. We would be moving at super speed in some other direction.
Or we'd just be running very, very, very fast, like on an airport travelator that's traveling at 2,000 miles an hour, trying to keep up so we don't get hit by buildings.
That's exactly right.
So how does one propose to link one's inertia to a distant star instead of to the planet we're standing on?
Well, obviously, if you change the maximum wavelength of light reaching you by 80 nanometers. No, that's the part, obviously, that's impossible. But the idea is not to just say, to go around and say, well, this could never happen and this is impossible and, what's the deal with the Hulk's pants anyway? Is to find, like, what is the one thing that what is the one rule I have to break or at least bend? And once you do that, is everything else okay? Is everything else reasonable, what I see? And so that's what Ben Tippett has done, which is a very clever thing, to find that one thing for Superman.
Dane, are you wearing a Superman cape? I think I can see a Superman cape. Can you show that? Oh, yes, and Von's got a Superman t-shirt. Can you show us the cape? Beautiful, very impressive. Of course, the reason why we're talking about Superman today is because today is the opening of the new Superman movie, so we thought it would be appropriate. Are you guys going to see the film?
What do you mean film? Like the movie?
Yeah, there's a new movie coming out. I don't know if it's appropriate for kids.
Yeah, because it's like PG-13. Yeah, and it depends on our mom.
Yeah. It's I guess you're 7 and 9, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I'm 9 and he's 7.
So you got.
And
4
by
or
the way,
6
this is not a T-shirt. My mom just printed out a logo and I got some tape and slapped it on my chest.
That is a superhero-like level of commitment and dedication. I think you've got 4 or 6 years before you'll be able to see the PG-13 film, but maybe if you can speed time up like Superman does, then you can see it sooner. Von and Dane, thanks so much for being with us. Take care of yourselves. Jim, thanks for explaining all that. It's fascinating stuff. I will be
it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Be sure to bear it in mind when I'm seeing the movie later tonight. Yeah. Stay tuned. There's plenty more coming up right here on HuffPost Live.